The image you see here is one of the murder kits Israel would bury all over the nation in preparation for his crimes. One such kit was buried for 2 years and then used in the murders of Bill and Lorraine Currier. The FBI still believes there are more buried all around the country and asks that if you know of one or locate a murder kit to contact the FBI ASAP. The contents of these usually included a firearm or knife, sometimes both, ammunition, tape, medical supplies, cleaving solvents, rope or handcuffs, sometimes drugs to sedate victims or for his own personal use, shovels or other items to dispose of bodies, such as lye. It is believed that he made 35 trips all over the United States, staging his kits and studying his potential victims. Dr. Thomas Powell stated that Israel's ability to stage his murder and wait for however long it took was new, as delayed gratification is not normal serial murder behavior. He stated that he had never seen anything like it during his time as a forensic psychologist. FBI Special Agent Jolene Godin referred to Israel Keyes as the most meticulous murderer she had ever encountered in her career. Keyes' obsession and research with Ted Bundy led him to be very talented at evading law enforcement and evading detection. Unlike Bundy, however, Keyes didn't have a preference on a victim. He could sit and wait for days for an opportune time to kill someone, really anyone. Vulnerability wasn't a concern for him. Is just if he could get a person alone or in a position where they would become vulnerable. If it meant 1 or 2 people, the time was what mattered to him. Killing someone in the night or when they are alone or not paying attention was what he looked for, and that was more of his modus operandi. On June 8, 2011, a little after midnight, out of unfortunate circumstances, Bill and Lorraine Currier were chosen randomly to be Keyes' victims. He had flown in from Alaska to Chicago, rented a car to visit family in Maine, but he must have got the urge to kill as he took his rental car and went to Vermont, where this couple lived. A little after midnight, he cut their phone lines and, in his own words, proceeded with a blitz attack. Once he had them at gunpoint, he took valuables in their home, and then he took them to their own car. He then drove them to an abandoned home he had previously scouted. He used the murder kit he had stashed 2 years prior to this to commit murder. The couple fought back, one escaping the car, and one almost free from his bonds. He mutilated Mr. Lorraine's face with a shovel and shot him. He then raped Mrs. Lorraine, and then when she saw her dead husband, he strangled her to death. He then doused their bodies in Drano and buried them, and then covered them up with debris. He returned to his rental car and left. Prior to February 1 of 2012, Keyes had been scouting a coffee shop to burglarize in the Anchorage area. There are more coffee shops in the Anchorage area per capita than Seattle, so he took his time and he did his research. He decided on Common Grounds Coffee Shop due to its location and it being open later hours than most of the other shops nearby. He had never met Miss Koenig prior to this evening. He approached the shop a little before closing time in a ski mask. He then ordered a coffee. She made the coffee for him, and as she handed it to him, he pulled his gun out and demanded money. He forced his way inside the shop and tied her hands with zip ties. During the craziness of this event, Koenig forgot to hit the panic button. He then demanded her car keys, and she stated she didn't own a car. He then walked her to where his car was parked, as he had previously removed his license plates and meticulously prepared his truck to hold victims. He tried to tell her she was being held for ransom, and then she explained that her family didn't have much money. He asked her for her debit card, and she realized she left it in her boyfriend's wallet in his truck. He then took her to his home, tied her up in his shed, turned the music up in case she screamed. He left, then burglarized her boyfriend's truck, and while in the process her boyfriend noticed him, he yelled at him and went into the house for help. During this time, Keyes ran to his truck and returned home. He then raped Koenig and asphyxiated her. He then stored her body in the freezer and went inside with his wife and daughter and packed for his family's cruise He left for a few hours later that morning. When he returned, he attempted to ransom Koenig's family with pictures of her prior to her death, trying to convince them that she was alive. Her dad even deposited some money in hopes to see her alive again. On March 13th of 2012, Israel Keyes was pulled over by a Lufkin, Texas Highway Patrol officer. He had been using Koenig's debit card in the area, and his car had matched a description of someone seen using it. When they pulled him over and searched his car, they found her debit card in his wallet. He was then interrogated by the police. During his interrogation, he admitted he had murdered at least 8 more. He admitted to raping several women, burglarizing homes, setting some homes in Texas ablaze. He also admitted to robbing some banks all across the nation. However, he wouldn't put his confession on paper or tell them who or where the victims were buried unless they would make an agreement to keep his crimes out of the media and guarantee he would be put to death within a year of his arrest. He was then indicted on murder charges and transported to an Anchorage prison, and then had a court date set for March of 2013. In December of 2012, he was found asphyxiated from his own bed sheets, and he had slit his own wrists, committing suicide. Investigators then found a drawing of 11 skulls made from his own blood underneath his bed. Most believe these skulls represent the people he murdered. The FBI as well still has the cases open and is still seeking any information on who or where the other 8 people may be.